In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 WNBA games happening on May 15, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 WNBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Las Vegas Aces versus Connecticut Sun. There's a certain danger in looking at what just happened and assuming it's going to happen again the exact same way. That's what makes this matchup so fascinating, because the defending champions just rolled into Mohegan Sun Arena and left no doubt about who the better team is on paper. We know that. Nobody is disputing that. But here's where it gets interesting, because the Sun that showed up 2 days ago weren't really the Sun at all. Connecticut was missing arguably the most physically imposing presence in the entire league, Brittney Griner, who sat out with a left foot sprain. Head coach Rashid Meziani said it himself after that loss. She told him she would play the next game, and his staff was doing everything they could to get her ready for tonight. That changes everything. When Griner was healthy and on the floor in the first 2 games of the season, she was averaging 14.5 points and 6 rebounds a game in nearly 28 minutes of action. She's a 10-time All-Star, a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and a former champion who signed with this team specifically to make an impact in what might be their final season at Mohegan Sun before the franchise packs up for Houston. You take that kind of anchor out of the middle of any defense, and of course the whole thing caves in. On top of that, Aaliyah Edwards has been sidelined with a left thigh injury since before the season even started, and veteran guard Shea Petty hasn't been available either with a lower left leg issue, and 2 more players in Layla Lacan and first-round pick Nell Angloma remain away from the team due to overseas obligations. So Connecticut has been running out there shorthanded in the most literal sense possible, and yet Anissa Morrow still went for 16 and 11 in the loss, and Olivia Nelson-Ododa put up 14 points of her own. The effort was there even when the roster wasn't. Now think about what this game looks like if Griner suits up. You're adding a 6'9" presence in the paint who clogs driving lanes, alters shots, and demands a double team on the block. That alone changes the math for the Aces' interior game. Las Vegas came out in that last meeting and shot an absurd 54% from the field while piling up 46 rebounds to Connecticut's 29, and a lot of that was because there was simply nobody in the middle to punish them. With Griner back, you're looking at a very different defensive landscape for the Sun. And let's talk about the situation itself. This is a team playing its final season in Connecticut, the Sunset season as they've been calling it, and the league just approved the sale and relocation to Houston literally the same day as that blowout loss on Wednesday. There's a real emotional undercurrent to every home game at Mohegan Sun now, and if you don't think that matters in women's basketball, you haven't been watching long enough. These players know this building's days are numbered, and so is every chance they get to give these fans something to remember. On top of that, back-to-back games on the road are never easy for anyone, not even a 3-time champion. The Aces are playing their second game in 3 nights away from home, and while Becky Hammond's group is plenty deep with Chennedy Carter providing a scoring jolt off the bench, road fatigue is real, and it tends to show up in concentration lapses and defensive miscommunication more than anything. Meanwhile, Mezian gets the benefit of 48 hours of fresh film to adjust, and coaching staffs in Game 2 scenarios of a series like this typically make meaningful tactical tweaks. Diamond Miller, Sania Rivers, Kennedy Burke, and the young rookies like Gianna Neepkins and Charles Ledger-Walker, they all got a look at what Las Vegas wants to do at full speed, and that's valuable even if the scoreboard didn't reflect it. Honestly, the number the books are asking Connecticut to stay within feels like it's built on the assumption that the same depleted, overwhelmed version of this team shows up again, and that might not be the case at all. As our first pick for this matchup, the Connecticut Sun to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Everything about the way Connecticut's season has started suggests a team that's struggling to put the ball in the basket, and that's before you even factor in the opponent tonight. The Sun are scoring just 75.3 points per game through their first 3 outings, which puts them near the bottom of the league. They shot 39% against the Liberty, fought a little harder against the Storm but still came up short, and then managed only 33% from the field and 3 of 13 from deep in the loss 2 nights ago. That kind of perimeter shooting, or lack thereof, puts a hard ceiling on how high the scoring can go in this game regardless of how good the other team is. Because here's the thing about combined scoring, it takes 2 teams to push it up, and a team that's struggling to crack 75 isn't going to suddenly flip a switch and start trading buckets in a shootout. Even the Aces' offensive firepower has limits on the road. Their opening game of the season at home against Phoenix produced a combined total of 165, and that was against a Mercury squad that was motivated, talented, and firing on all cylinders. Las Vegas only scored 66 in that game. Now yes, the Aces bounced back with 105 against the Sparks, but that was one of the best shooting performances in franchise history at over 62% from the floor, and expecting that to be repeatable on back-to-back road games is a stretch. If Griner does return tonight, that has a twofold effect on the scoring picture. On one hand, she adds some offense for the Sun, but on the other she anchors a defense that was completely without a rim protector on Wednesday. Her presence in the lane tends to shorten possessions for the opposing team, force mid-range pull-ups instead of layups, and generally slow things down. That's not a recipe for a combined explosion on the scoreboard. The pace of play matters here too. Connecticut under Messiaen isn't built to run and gun. This is a roster that plays a more methodical style, and without a reliable three-point shot, they're working harder for every single bucket they get, which eats clock. The Aces' defense has actually been solid this year when they're locked in, holding opponents to 82 points per game on average through the first 3 contests. Combine a stingy Las Vegas defense with a Connecticut offense that's been one of the least productive in the league so far, and the ceiling on total points feels lower than people think. 2 nights ago, with the Aces rolling and the Sun at their absolute worst, the game still only combined for 167. That's the floor for Las Vegas in terms of dominance in this matchup, and even that scenario didn't crack the number the books are projecting. Factor in a healthier Sun defense if Griner plays, natural back-to-back fatigue, and the likelihood that Las Vegas pulls the starters earlier if they build a comfortable lead, and you've got all the ingredients for a game that stays in the lower range of the scoring spectrum. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Washington Mystics versus Indiana Fever. Both of these squads come into tonight sitting at 1-1 on the young season, but if you scratch beneath the surface even a little bit, these 2 teams could not be in more different places right now. The Indiana Fever walked out of last season with a 24-20 record, a Commissioner's Cup championship trophy on the mantle, and a trip to the WNBA semifinals where they pushed the Las Vegas Aces to a full 5 games before bowing out. They did all of that, by the way, without their franchise cornerstone for 31 of 44 regular season games. Caitlin Clark missed the bulk of 2025 with a nagging groin injury, and Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston carried a banged-up patchwork roster further than anyone predicted. The Fever had players going down left and right, signed emergency hardship contracts, and still came within a few possessions of the WNBA Finals. You remember that kind of grit, and more importantly, the players remember it. That core stuck together through free agency this offseason, and now you add a fully healthy Clark back into the mix alongside Mitchell, Boston, Sophie Cunningham, and a revamped front court with Monique Billings and Maisha Hines-Allen. Stephanie White is entering her 4th year at the helm, and she knows what she has. Washington, on the other hand, is somewhere between a science experiment and a teardown. The Mystics went 16-28 last year, and honestly, that record flatters them a bit because they closed out the 2025 campaign on a 10-game losing streak after shipping Brittany Sykes to the Seattle Storm. Then they lost both Jade Melbourne and Sugg Sutton through the expansion draft and free agency. 3 of the most important ball handlers from last year's roster gone. In their place, Sydney Johnson brought in one of the most rookie-heavy rosters the league has ever seen, with 8 first-year players including number 4 overall pick Lauren Betts, Angela Dugalic, Cassandra Prosper, and Rory Harmon. Cody McMahon, their 11th overall selection, hasn't even suited up yet because of a partial UCL tear in her left elbow sustained during the preseason. Sure, Kiki Iriafen and Sonia Citron earned All-Star nods in 2025, and they've shown flashes already this year, with Iriafen going for 20 and 12 and Citron posting 17 in a loss to the Liberty. But two young stars surrounded by a roster full of players learning WNBA speed on the fly is a recipe for inconsistency, and that's being generous. The Mystics' lone win so far came on the road in Toronto, a 3-point squeaker over a literal expansion team playing its first ever game. That's it. That's the signature victory. Meanwhile, Indiana bounced back from a tough opening night loss to Dallas, where Kelsey Mitchell dropped 30 and Clark added 20 by going into Los Angeles and handling the Sparks 87-78. Clark looked like the player who broke rookie records 2 years ago, finishing with 24 points, 9 assists, and 2 steals in that game. Mitchell poured in 23 more. Billings made her season debut after recovering from an ankle injury and grabbed 8 boards. The Fever's backcourt is averaging a combined 49 points per game through 2 contests. And when those two get cooking together, they can bury a team in transition before the defense even gets set. Indiana also gets rookie guard Raven Johnson from South Carolina, the reigning SEC Defensive Player of the Year, who gives them a perimeter stopper they can throw at opposing guards when they need a breather. The depth on this team compared to what Washington can roll out off the bench is night and day. You also have to factor in the building. Gainbridge Fieldhouse has become one of the toughest environments in the WNBA over the last 2 seasons. The energy, the noise, the atmosphere, all of it ramps up when Clark and Mitchell get the crowd going, and for a group of rookies from Washington who are still figuring out the pace of this league, walking into that buzz is a completely different animal than playing in front of a sleepy Toronto crowd on opening night. Let me remind you of the last time these two teams met. September 7th, 2025. Indiana 94, Washington 65. A 29-point demolition. The Fever were short-handed in that game too. Washington has covered with a generous cushion in 9 of their last 10 trips to Indianapolis, which tells you that even in closer games, the Mystics tend to stay within range. But the version of Indiana that exists right now is the most talented and deepest squad they've assembled in this Caitlin Clark era. The Mystics are younger, thinner, and still searching for their identity under a second-year head coach. Indiana has championship aspirations. Washington is trying to survive. When the talent gap, the experience gap, the coaching continuity gap, and the home court advantage all point in the same direction, you lean into that. As our first pick for this matchup, the Indiana Fever to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The scoring environment in Indiana's game so far has been fascinating to watch. In their opener against Dallas, the two teams combined for 211 points. That game was a track meet from the opening tip, with both squads trading buckets at a pace that made your head spin. Then against the Sparks, the combined total settled at 165, which was lower but still featured Indiana putting up 87 on the road. The Fever are averaging 95.5 points per game through 2 outings, and if you go back to last season, they put up 84.9 per game even with Clark missing 31 games. Think about what that means for a second. Without their best offensive weapon for most of the year, Indiana still ranked 3rd in the entire league in scoring. Now Clark is back, she's healthy, and she's averaging 22 points and 8 assists per game out of the gate. Kelsey Mitchell is scoring at a 26.5 clip. Aaliyah Boston dropped 23 in the opener. This offense has multiple avenues to generate points, and Stephanie White's system creates ball movement that leads to open looks, evidenced by the 23 assists per game Indiana has dished out so far. The Fever played at the 5th fastest pace in the WNBA last season, and with Clark back running the show, there's every reason to believe that number ticks up in 2026. Clark pushes the ball in transition, she finds cutters, she pulls up from 30 feet, and she forces defenses to scramble in ways that create easy baskets for everyone around her. When Indiana gets out and runs, the scoreboard moves. Washington's defensive profile is where things get interesting from a scoring perspective. The Mystics gave up 98 points to the New York Liberty in a game that went to overtime, yes, but their half-court defense broke down repeatedly against ball screen actions and dribble penetration. Rory Harmon turned it over 5 times trying to navigate the Liberty's pressure. Lauren Betts, as talented as she is at 6'7", is still learning rotations and help side concepts at this level. Young defenses make mistakes, and those mistakes translate into fast break points and open threes for an offense as skilled as Indiana's. The Fever generated 24 points off turnovers against the Sparks, and the Mystics are a team that could easily cough up the ball against Indiana's defensive intensity, especially with Raven Johnson hounding ball handlers on the perimeter. On the flip side, Washington's own offense showed some life in the Liberty game. Iriafen attacked the glass with 6 offensive rebounds and scored 20. Citron got to the free throw line 9 times. Shakira Austin put up a double-double with 16 and 10. Georgia Amoore, making her WNBA debut this season after tearing her ACL and missing all of 2025, dished 7 assists against New York. When the Mystics play a team that pushes the pace, they get pulled into a faster game whether they want to or not, and their young players have the athleticism to create in those situations even if the efficiency isn't always there. Against Toronto in the opener, the game crawled to a combined 133 points because both teams were grinding possessions and playing at a snail's pace. That won't happen here. Indiana doesn't let you slow it down. The Fever's offensive rating through 2 games sits at a level that suggests they want to play fast, shoot fast, and create chaos for the other team's defense. Washington's front court, anchored by Austin and Iriafen, will keep the Mystics involved on the offensive glass, which extends possessions and creates more opportunities to score on both ends. The Mystics grabbed 19 offensive boards against the Liberty. Extra possessions mean extra points, and that works in the favor of a higher scoring affair. Indiana's 2 games this season have produced combined totals of 211 and 165. Washington's 2 games have produced 133 and 191. The projected number tonight sits in a spot where Indiana's offense alone could carry a significant chunk of the weight, and Washington's young roster has shown it can score when pushed into an up-tempo contest. Factor in that the Fever allowed the Sparks to score 78 even in a comfortable win, and that Indiana's defense, while improved, still ranked just 7th out of 13 teams last season, and you have a matchup where both sides contribute to the final tally. When one team plays this fast and scores this efficiently, and the other team has the athletes to keep engaging offensively even in a losing effort, the math favors volume. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Chicago Sky versus Phoenix Mercury. Phoenix comes into tonight hosting at Footprint Center, and listen, if you caught what this team did to the defending champion Las Vegas Aces in their season opener, you already know the kind of ceiling we're dealing with here. They walked into Vegas and hung 99 points on them, shot nearly 50% from the field, almost 46% from deep, and won that game by 33. Against an Aces squad built around a Ja Wilson, the reigning league MVP. Not some bottom-feeder rebuilding franchise, the actual defending champions. The Mercury side had 1-2 on the young season, and yeah, that record doesn't jump off the page. But zoom into those 2 losses and you'll see a completely different story than what the standings suggest. One came on the road against Golden State, a legitimate playoff squad with home court energy behind them. The other was a 4-point home loss to a deep, veteran Minnesota Lynx team, 88-84, where Phoenix actually held the lead for stretches and just couldn't close the deal in the final minutes. Neither loss screamed panic. Neither looked like a team falling apart. Here's the thing. Phoenix arguably has the most dangerous 2-player combination in the entire W right now, and I don't say that lightly. Alyssa Thomas came over after a 2025 campaign where she averaged 15.4 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 9.2 assists per game, the kind of stat line you'd expect from a point guard, not a forward. She showed up immediately in the opener too, going for 20 points, 6 boards, and 9 assists in the Vegas demolition. And then there's Kalia Copper, who dropped 30 on Minnesota, attacking from every angle, getting downhill to the rim, pulling up from mid-range, drawing fouls at will. When those two are both cooking, defenses are playing pick-your-poison basketball, and there's no right answer. Dewana Bonner shot 71% from the field in that Vegas win and gives Phoenix a steady third option who's been through every playoff pressure situation you can imagine over her long career. Natasha Mack has been doing the grimy work underneath, posting back-to-back double-doubles with 15 rebounds against Vegas and 10 against Minnesota while swatting shots at the rim like a volleyball player. Nate Tibbetts has his pieces in place, and this group went all the way to the WNBA Finals last season, so they've already played under the brightest lights. You can't teach that experience. Chicago rolls in at 2-0, and credit where it's due, they've competed. They took care of the expansion Portland Fire 98-83 in their opener and then grinded out a scrappy 69-63 win over Golden State on the road. But let me explain why that perfect record is a bit deceiving. Portland is a brand new franchise, a first-year expansion team still trying to figure out who plays where and how the pieces fit. Beating them by 15 at this stage of their existence doesn't exactly make your resume pop. And that Golden State game, while technically a win, was an offensive nightmare for both sides, with Chicago shooting just 36% from the floor and putting up only 69 total points. That's not the kind of offensive performance that inspires confidence heading into Phoenix. The bigger red flag for Chicago is the injury list, and honestly, it's long enough to make you wince. Azura Stevens is out with a knee injury. Dejounte Carrington is out following left foot surgery with no timetable in sight. Courtney Vandersloot, the veteran floor general who's supposed to orchestrate everything, is out after a right knee procedure. 3 legit rotation players unavailable. When you're already running a guard-heavy roster the way Tyler Marsh has built this team, losing that kind of depth is a real problem. It only gets worse on the road, and Chicago is on the second night of a West Coast road swing tonight. Skylar Diggins has been fantastic, no question about it. She posted a 21-point, 11-rebound double-double against Portland and has looked like the engine driving everything offensively. Ricka Jackson scored 18 and 19 in the 2 games. Camila Cardoso put together a 22 and 14 double-double against Portland. Rookie Gabriela Jaquez, the number 5 pick out of UCLA, has contributed in both outings as well. The young core has talent, nobody's debating that. But the matchup history here is screaming at you. Phoenix has beaten Chicago 7 straight times over the last 3 seasons. 7-0. That's not some random hot streak or a sample size fluke. That's a structural matchup problem that Chicago hasn't figured out. Phoenix knows how to play against this franchise, full stop. When you stack everything up, the home court at Footprint Center, the star power edge with Copper and Thomas, the injury situation tilting heavily against the sky, Chicago playing the second night of a back-to-back, and a 7-game head-to-head winning streak for Phoenix, this is a spot where the Mercury should control the game from start to finish. Thomas runs the offense like a point forward out of the high post, and when she catches it there, the Mercury cut, move, and generate open looks for everyone. Chicago's defense held Golden State to 63 points, but that game was a shooting anomaly where nobody on either team could hit water from a boat. Against a Phoenix offense that racked up 23 assists in their opener, the Sky's perimeter defenders are going to be chasing rotations all night. As our first pick for this matchup, the Phoenix Mercury to cover the spread as favorites is our full-game side pick. Both of these offenses have already shown they can put up points in bunches when things break right. Phoenix dropped 99 in their opener and 84 against a Minnesota defense that's no joke. Chicago hung 98 on Portland in their first game of the year. The combined scores from Phoenix's 3 games tell you a lot: 165, 174, and 172. 2 of those 3 sailed comfortably past where tonight's number sits. Chicago's Portland opener produced 181 combined, which is massive for any WNBA game. The one result that might scare you off is the Sky's Golden State game, where the 2 teams combined for just 132 points. But that game was a defensive rock fight where both teams shot under 37% from the floor, the kind of collective cold shooting that's really hard to replicate on any given night. And it happened against a Valkyries defense that's looked like one of the best units in the league early on. Phoenix is a completely different offensive animal. The Mercury want to push tempo, get out in transition, and generate scoring chances through constant ball movement. They racked up 23 assists in the Vegas blowout and 20 in the Minnesota loss, which tells you the passing and cutting are baked into the system regardless of outcome. More possessions mean more chances to score on both ends, and that's exactly what Phoenix's pace creates. Kaylee Copper alone attempted 21 shots against Minnesota and got to the free throw line 13 times in that one game. Think about that for a second. One player generating that kind of volume by herself. You layer Alyssa Thomas on top, a player who draws fouls, gets to the stripe, and creates open looks through her passing vision, and this offense produces points through a bunch of different channels. On Chicago's side, Camila Cardoso is going to get her touches in the post every time. She stands 6'7", she's physical, and she went to the line 8 times against Portland. Ricka Jackson has averaged over 18 points across her first 2 games and attacks the basket like she's got a personal grudge against the rim. Diggins will hunt her shot aggressively. J.C. Sheldon has been a two-way spark, putting up 13 in both contests while hitting threes at a nice clip. When these 2 rosters collide, fouls are going to stack up fast. Phoenix plays a physical brand of basketball, and Chicago's interior presence with Cardoso and Elizabeth Williams means bodies are crashing in the paint on both ends every possession. Free throws add up. Second chance buckets add up. The Mercury have also been letting it fly from 3 at a 41% clip as a team, ranking first in the league so far this season, and that kind of perimeter efficiency juices scoring totals in a hurry. There's a broader element working in the background here too. Early season WNBA games tend to lean toward higher scoring because defensive rotations aren't locked in yet. Both of these rosters went through massive offseason turnover. Chicago moved on from Angel Reese, signed Natasha Cloud, drafted Jaquez, and fundamentally reshaped their identity. Phoenix lost Satu Sabally but brought in Thomas and rebuilt around a new core. That kind of roster upheaval means defensive chemistry takes time to develop, and while both teams find their footing, possessions that would be stops in mid-June are turning into open looks in mid-May. Phoenix's 3 games have averaged 170 combined points, and the floor in those contests was 165. Chicago's Portland opener blew past 180. Both offenses have the firepower to reach the 80s tonight, and if the game stays competitive, which the matchup profile suggests it will, late-game fouling and trips to the line will push the scoring even higher. Phoenix has the shooters, the tempo, and the playmaking to generate offense. Chicago has the interior scoring, the guard creation, and the aggressiveness to match it. You mix those two things together in a May game where neither defense has found its identity yet, and points are going to come. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Toronto Tempo versus Los Angeles Sparks. You know what makes this one so fascinating? The Toronto Tempo are about to do something they've never done before, and I mean literally never done before, and that's play a road game. This franchise is 2 games old. They've had the energy of a sold-out Coca-Cola Coliseum behind them for both contests, and Marina Mabrey has looked like a legitimate franchise cornerstone, dropping 27 in the debut against Washington and then coming back with 26 and 6 made threes against Seattle. Brittany Sykes scored the first basket in franchise history. Kaya Nurse is playing in front of her home country fans, and the whole thing has felt like a storybook so far. But here's the thing, that storybook was written at home. Tonight in Los Angeles, at Crypto.com Arena, the Tempo step into a building where nobody is chanting their name, nobody is waving a Canadian flag, and the crowd couldn't care less about their cute little expansion narrative. And speaking of the home team, yeah, the Sparks are sitting at 0-2 right now, but context matters so much here. Their first loss came against the defending champion Las Vegas Aces, a team that shot 62% from the field, the second best mark in franchise history for Vegas. The second loss, against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, and even in that one, Kelsey Plum poured in 25 points and the Sparks went on an 11-3 run late to nearly claw all the way back. Cameron Brink showed real signs of life in that Fever game too, finishing with 11 points, 5 boards, and 3 blocks after playing just 8 minutes in the opener. That progression matters. Lynn Roberts' squad ran the fastest pace in the entire WNBA last season and finished second in points per game at 85.7, so the engine is there. It just needs a few more possessions to start humming. Nneka Ogwumike is back in a Sparks uniform for the first time since she was their franchise MVP, and Diarika Hamby has put up 16 points and 8 rebounds in the Fever game like it was nothing. The veteran core of Plum, Hamby, and Ogwumike has championship experience, all-star pedigree, and something Toronto can't manufacture, and that's years of playing under WNBA pressure. Ariel Atkins left the Fever game with a head injury and might not suit up tonight, but even that opens the door for Erica Wheeler, a veteran guard who averaged a career-best 13.6 per game the last time she wore a Sparks jersey. Meanwhile, Toronto's Sandy Brondello is one of the best coaches this league has ever seen, a 2-time champion who went 12 for 12 in making the postseason as a head coach before landing in Toronto. But even Brondello can't fast-track the chemistry of a roster full of players who've been teammates for all of 3 weeks. The Tempo shot 17 for 63 from the field in their debut, that's 27%, and went 5 for 25 from 3. When Mabrey isn't cooking, Toronto's offense looks like a team still trying to figure out where to stand on the floor. And now they have to figure that out 3,000 miles from home in their first road game ever against a team that is desperate and loaded with talent. Desperation in the WNBA is a real thing, by the way. The Sparks haven't made the playoffs in 5 straight years, the longest active drought in the league, and they spent all offseason building a win-now roster. Plum took less than the Supermax to make room for these additions. A team that invested that much doesn't start 0-3 at home. I just don't see it. As our first pick for this matchup, the Los Angeles Sparks to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. And let's talk about how many points are going on the board tonight, because honestly, I think people might be overestimating the offensive fireworks here. Toronto's first ever game produced a combined 133 points. The Tempo scored 65, Washington scored 68, and the whole thing felt like a rock fight dressed up in a bow because it was opening night. Toronto shot 27% from the floor in that game and 20% from behind the arc. Yes, they bounced back against Seattle with 86 points, but the Storm were dealing with their own absences that night, and even then the combined total only hit 159. Those are Toronto's 2 data points so far, and neither one screams shootout. Now consider what happens when you take an expansion team and put them on an airplane for the first time this season. Road games for brand new franchises tend to produce tighter possessions, more cautious shot selection, and the kind of hesitation that comes from being uncomfortable in an unfamiliar building. You lose that crowd energy that was juicing your confidence at home, and suddenly Mabry's pull-up threes feel a little longer and Sykes's drives into the lane feel a little more contested. Sandy Brondello's teams have always been about structure and discipline. She coached the Liberty to 2 consecutive finals appearances and a championship by building systems that controlled pace and limited easy looks for opponents. She's not running some run-and-gun scheme in Toronto, she's installing structure, and structure in the early weeks of an expansion franchise means more half-court sets, more deliberate possessions, and fewer transition buckets. On the Sparks side, their defense tightened up from Game 1 to Game 2. They allowed 105 to Las Vegas in the opener and then held Indiana to 87, a noticeable improvement. Roberts made defensive adjustments, and if Brink continues to get more run, her rim protection alone could slow down Toronto's interior attack. Both of these teams are still in the early stages of figuring out their rotations. New pieces on both sides, new systems, new chemistry questions. Early season WNBA games with this much roster turnover and this little cohesion tend to feature more turnovers, more stagnant offensive stretches, and more possessions that end with someone dribbling into traffic because they don't know where their teammate is cutting. Toronto's assist numbers in the opener were telling, just 4 total assists in that Washington game. When the ball isn't moving, points don't come easy. And if Atkins sits tonight for the Sparks, that changes their offensive dynamic too, pulling minutes away from a player who averaged over 13 points per game last season and redistributing them to players still finding their footing in this system. Everything about tonight's game points toward a slower, grittier contest than people might expect. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.